Alright, so I was talking to Shamar yesterday about Resto Druid stuff, and like, I don't like the Trent build. I also don't play Resto Druid this season. I haven't played Resto Druid since like the end of Shadowlands. So we're going to try a Wild Stalker build that I'm just making up from theory crafting on Wowhead. Like, absolutely no reason to say this is going to be good or not, but I'm going to run through the talents, go through my basic, what I think the playstyle is going to look like, and then try to get into a bunch of LFR to actually test it. Like, this is an alt. I don't have great gear in Resto spec. Like, I usually play Feral or Boom or Guardian. So we're at 590 net 5, like garbage trinkets, way too much crit. Like, we could be a lot better in haste and mastery, because like mastery is gonna be something I really want a lot more of. I'm sorry, I have a cough. It's cold. Uh, no leech. That makes me feel sad. But anyway, here's what I'm thinking for the build. So, of course, we're taking Life Bloom. I'm going straight down the right side of this tree and getting Omen of Clarity into Tranquil Mind. And the reason I want to get Tranquil Mind is because I don't want to lose Omen of Clarity procs, and I want more clear casting procs, because I think that's really what's going to carry the build. Is with Wild Stalker, we're going to get these symbiotic blooms, and these symbiotic blooms can be on wild growth, regrowth, and efflorescence. We're already going to be casting wild growth a lot because we're a Resto Druid, and we're going to have our efflorescence down as much as possible because we're a Resto Druid. But what I'm really leaning into here is way more regrowths than you would normally play for. And the way Omen of Clarity works is your healing over time from your Life Bloom has a chance to cause clear casting. Normally this is 4%. This makes it 5%, so like it's not that great in terms of percentage, but it's the fact that you can have an additional stack, so you're not losing out on those free casts. And then those free casts are going to be buffed based on this talent, this 30%. The other benefit here is that I think because we're casting regrowth way more, the mana intensity is going to be a lot higher, and I'm not going into Master Shapeshifter for mana. Also, it's going to be LFR. We're not going to have a mana problem. But like, I think I could spam regrowths and probably not run into a problem. I'm also going to be running Convoke, because this build, I'm really going for a 1 minute build, because I feel like most of the fights, your big damage events are going to be around the 1 minute profile. And I don't like Trent, and I don't like Tree of Life, but I still want Tree of Life procs and Reforestation, so we'll get there. So, because we're doing a 1 minute build, I'm going into Nature's Swiftness, into Nature's Splendor. Now, the last time I played Resto Druid, and I'm sure this is still the case, well, I'm not sure, but I'm thinking this is still the case, is the healing bonus from regrowth is increased by 35% when you have your Nature's Swiftness up. And when you Convoke, all of your regrowths that are cast with a Convoke get that bonus without consuming the Nature's Swiftness. So basically, every time I press Convoke, I'm going to want to press Nature's Swiftness first. So Nature's Swift, like, let me run through the basic rotation. Ramping is going to be regrowths and rejuves for abundance stacks. Like, we'll see. I'm not going to press rejuve that often, I feel like. It's if I'm getting rejuves out, it's because I'm in movement, or there's just nothing else to really care about pressing, or they're coming from Convoke. But you basically go into Nature's Swiftness. Well, you're going to get a Reforestation proc first. So, like, every 3 cast of Swiftmen, which is a 15-second cooldown, is going to give us Tree of Life. We're going to use that Swiftmen proc for Soul of the Forest to Wild Growth immediately afterwards, because Wild Growth is going to be our most effective heal. Although in some cases, I think you could argue, because regrowth is cleaving based off on other talents, that like regrowth might be better in certain situations if the cleaved regrowths also benefit from Soul of the Forest, which I do not know if they do or not. I would need to figure that out. I'm sorry again. But basically, we're bumping up our regrowth healing and taking anything that fits in, like, improving our 1 minute burst. So like, it's gonna be Nature's Swiftness into a 1 minute Convoke, immediately following it up by a Flourish. But before we even hit that Convoke, we're gonna get Mastery stacks from Wild Growth, because we're going to. The goal here should be to Reforestation, proc, Wild Growth, Nature's Swiftness, Convoke, Flourish, spam regrowth while you're in the rest of your tree form. Or theoretically, you could put down some bunch of rejuves during that time period. I think we're going to get a bunch of open clarity procs, and I think regrowth's going to be better, but we'll see. So let me just run down the tree. So Life Bloom, Nature Swiftness, Nature Splendor, Improved Regrowth. All of this is, so these two are just for that 1 minute CD. This is because we have to take it, but we're going to lean into Life Bloom healing by taking another talent later that gives us 2 targets to Life Bloom, because that means more Omen of Clarity procs. So we're going to run down this right side for Omen of Clarity procs, and then we take Improved Regrowth just to make Regrowth better. And that's going to unlock the second tier of the tree. The second tier of the tree, basically you're taking Efflow, because it's Efflow. You're getting Soul of the Forest, which we're going to mostly spend on wild growths, but maybe regrowth. We'll find out. Verdancy, because we're going to have Wild Bloom out a lot, and we're going to have Efflow down a lot, because those are our big, like Efflow is, and Regrowth are going to be our big, Symbiotic Bloom procs. So like Verdancy is I think gonna go off a lot more frequently, because we are life blooming constantly. We've got to have it up on 2 targets 24/7 if we're good at this game, which we're not. Rampant regrowth healing over time is increased, and it also applies to your target of your life bloom. This is our cleave. Like, this is where I think regrowth's gonna also get a value, because basically if you're keeping life bloom on your tanks constantly, you're never gonna regrowth your life bloom targets, because they're just gonna have it up 24/7. Spring Blossoms, and we're mostly taking Spring Blossoms because it's a mastery stack, and mastery stacks are good. If we were having mana issues, I would take Master Shapeshifter, but it's LFR, we're not going to have mastery issues. And we're going to take Flourish for the 1 minute. Flourish is just an absolute insane button. I think this is your strongest heal as a druid, is Flourish, especially after a Reforestation proc. I think there could be an argument to be made with like certain rot fights where like 1 minute cooldowns don't make a lot of sense, and it's just constant pressure that photosynthesis with a life bloom on yourself, 1, will keep yourself alive, and 2, will give you more Omen of Clarity procs, and just be better overall in terms of just constant rot damage. But I think that even with fights that have the constant rot damage in this tier, in this season, Flourish is still, like, I can't think of a fight that doesn't have a good 1 minute timing for Flourish. It's just so good. And then, of course, on the right side, so that's basically how we work down the left. On the right side, we're going to take Ironbark, and we're doing that to get to Improved Wild Growth, Unstoppable Growth, into Verdant Infusion. An argument could be made for Prosperity, for being more easily able to time Reforestation. I really like Verdant Infusion, though, being able to extend the duration of your heal over time effects, which this does not affect Symbiotic Blooms. So Flourish and Verdant Infusion don't extend Symbiotic Blooms, but like, we're going to be putting out a bunch of really large regrowths and like buffed heals, and like, I hate consuming my hots. Like, I just don't like that aspect of Swiftments. Like, this is one of my favorite talents for Resto Druid, and I don't, like, an argument can be made for Prosperity, but like, we're timing this around 1 minute. If we're just pressing Swiftmet on cooldown, roughly, like not exactly on cooldown, because then it would be every 45 seconds instead of a minute, we're going to get Reforestation every minute to time with our Convoke and our Flourish. So I think we're safe to take Verdant Infusion here. And then we're going to take Thriving Vegetation, and we are only taking Thriving Vegetation really to get to Reforestation, but the fact that it increases regrowth duration by 6 seconds is pretty nice for us, because this is so regrowth heavy. Cultivation is nice because it's how we're going to get to Convoke, but it's also a really good bonus for our mastery stacks if, theoretically, and this is just theoretically, we are actually pressing Rejuve, which we'll see how often that's happening. And targets are getting below 60% health, which it's LFR, this isn't happening. So this is mostly just a point to get to Convoke. Now, I think, excuse me, there could be an argument to be made for Nourish into Wild Synthesis, because basically you're going to get a bunch of instant cast Nourishes that have huge Harmony buffs, and I think that would be interesting, but because I haven't played Resto Druid in a long time, and it's pretty mana heavy, I'm not going to lean into it until I've gotten, like, the basics down. I also think there could be an argument made of Grove Guardians into Wild Synthesis for more mastery AoE healing kind of thing, just from putting down Grove Guardians. But I don't like Grove Guardians. Like, I just don't like it as an ability, so I don't play with it. And that's why we're going to go through Harmonious Blooming. The other choice is to go through Regenesis, but because we're not putting Rejuves out, and because targets aren't really getting low health, I don't think Regenesis is ever going to get much value for us. But because we're always going to have Life Blooms out, like, it's not going to do a lot. Like, it's really getting to Convokes, there's no good options for us. But of the options, I think Harmonious Blooming for this build is my preferred. Because you're basically getting the same benefit from the Nourish bonuses that you would from Wild Synthesis. But you're not having to press an extra button that's going to cost mana. Like, you're already casting this button. You're going to have it on 2 targets. You're basically going to keep it on your priority targets and keep them alive, whether that's yourself in a tank or both the tanks, or like the web people in the Silken Court, like whoever it's going to be. Like, I just think Harmonious Blooming is going to, it's just convenient passive. And then of course Convoke over Tree. I think there could be an argument made for Tree, but it's a 3-minute. I don't enjoy it as a button. I just don't like it. I don't enjoy Incarnate Tree of Life for most fights because I don't like the timing, and it's better probably if you played the Wild Grove Tender, but I'm not. I mean, because we're building around 1 minute, we're going to go Convoke, of course, which is becoming a 1 minute because we're taking the improved Convoke, and then Undergrowth, which is what our second Life Bloom target's getting us. So we're going down that way. And then this is our last point, and this point you could flex to a bunch of different places. I think you could flex it to really anything on this row. Improved Ironbark if you needed more tank stuff. Like, you could get one of your Inner Peace talents if you wanted cooldown reduction. Like, theoretically, we could get more Convokes out, like one more Convoke out, because we could get a 20-second reduction on Convoke, Flourish, whatnot. But like, yeah, like, it's not that impactful over the course of a fight. Like, you're pressing this. Like, it's a 3-minute cooldown. Like, you're pressing this once, maybe twice, most fights, if that. Maybe 3 times. We'll see. There's just not a lot of good places for Trank, and I don't really press it all that often. I probably should press it more. But sorry, dogs coughing. This is meant to be a recording, but it is what it is. It's casual. I also have my eye tracker turned on, but I haven't calibrated my eye tracker in a really long time, so it could be way off. I'll find out later when I go and look back at this, because I don't have the live preview turned on for myself because it's distracting. So I'm going with Embrace the Dream because we're gonna have a bunch of regrowths out all the time, and theoretically Convoke's gonna put a bunch of rejuves out. Like, it's just, if it procs, it procs. It's another nice passive to have. I'm curious about Invigorate. If Invigorate means more Omen and Clarity procs, I think there is a world in which Invigorate's on a 20-second cooldown is actually pretty decent as a button. I don't think it's the world I'm playing in because I like passives because I'm just getting back into the habits. But we could also do Liveliness for, I guess, if I was putting dots on things. Like, it's 5% increased ticking isn't that good in my opinion for the build we're going for. Master Shapeshifter, if I was actually having mana issues, would be great. This, I guess, theoretically could mean more open procs because your Life Bloom's ticking more often, potentially. And then, of course, Nurture's Dormant. Like, if I'm actually pressing Rejuve, Nurturing Dormancy would be the button I'd take because I think it's really good in terms of Rejuve uptime. Also, Budding Leaves wouldn't be bad because we're having Life Bloom out so much, but like, the targets you have Life Bloom on are already just getting constantly healed by cleaved regrowths. So like, do you really even need more healing on those targets? It's like Verdancy, Life Blooms are gonna be popping off. So I think Embrace the Dream is just my play here. And then for my choice notes, I think most of these are kind of pretty much locked in. So like, you can take your normal ones, which is gonna be We Don't Care, We Don't Really Care. Well, okay, casting Regrowth increases you periodic heals, chance to critically heal. It's just a nice passive, like, because we're gonna be casting Regrowth all the time. This is just increased F-Flow and Life Bloom healing for us, essentially, because like, we're not pressing Rejuve that often, but when it's up, it's up. We're never gonna press this in raid. Like, it's not happening. Like, there's just not a lot of dispels happening in most of the fights. And the fights that there are, like this is a nice passive health for yourself, or just a good heal, strong. Uh, Flower Walk, like every time in raid, like we're Bark's getting frequently, and like if it just gives us extra healing and movement speed, that's great. One of the great things about this build that I'll go into is that like we get so much passive movement speed. Like I don't have my weak aura for movement speed anymore. I need to go. Maybe I'll go hunt that down so we can see it. But like you're moving at roughly 120% move speed, more than 120%, like 123 to 133% move speed constantly. Like movement feels so good. Because I'm coming from somebody that's maining Holy Priest this season, like just being able to move out of things constantly and just running fast, it feels great. And Flower Walk on top of Feline Swiftness on top of Forest Walk, it's so good. But yeah, so Bark Skin gives movement speed and healing. That's nice. It's not a lot of healing, but it's still nice because we're pressing Bark Skin for ourselves anyway. Bonded with Nature or Harmonious Constitution. If I was running photosynthesis, I would probably run Harmonious Constitution because I think you would be hitting yourself with regrowth quite a lot. But because we are not running photosynthesis, and so we're not cleaving regrowth onto ourselves nearly as frequently, I'm not going to be taking it. I'm just going to take all healing increases, meaning healing from both myself and from anybody else is going to be improved. Or, excuse me, wrong channel. So I just think it's better in this situation. So we're going to go with Bond of Nature over Harmonious Constitution. This one, Resilient Flourishing, so your Symbiotic Blooms last 2 additional seconds, or Symbiotic Plume increases your healing of your spells by 2%. I can see arguments made for both of these. I don't know if Symbiotic Blooms count towards Mastery stacks, but they can stack multiple times, and I just get the feeling that additional 2 seconds on them in most cases is going to be more efficient, depending on how often they're going out and how like powerful they are when they go out. So we'll see. Like I think there's definitely an argument to be made for Root Network where you're just getting more just passive buff healing by percentages, but I think the increased duration is my preferred method. Sorry, I've got something popping up on the other screen, that's why I'm so distracted here. And then Vigorous Creepers is just going to be your capstone. Increases the healing your spells do on affected targets by 20%. This is why I think that 2 seconds is going to be better. Like the Mastery stacks plus, like that's just going to be 20% more when it is on them, as opposed to just getting like this stacking. Like it's going to be better. Bursting Growth. This is something where it's just passive. We don't care. This is our last choice node. And this is one where I think an argument can be made for either of these. So, cleaving, a chance to cleave your Symbiotic Blooms. So anytime I'm going to regrowth, and it's going to have like all my regrowth is going to have, or efflorescence or wild growth are going to have a chance to create Symbiotic Blooms. And then those Symbiotic Blooms are going to have a chance to create additional Symbiotic Blooms, which means more healing on those targets. Like, I think this is going to be better for AoE